everyone, and welcome to the program. This is Center Politics live on Channels Television. I'm sure Kimbale in Lagos. Tonight, our attention is largely on the issue of security in the country. And some news we're reporting here is that police authorities in Benue State say 14 bandits were killed following an attempted attack on a police station this morning. The report reveals that a gunman numbering about 50 launched an attack in the early hours of the day on the police station at Katsina Ala town of the state in a bid to free some suspected bandits who were arrested by police on Saturday and detained in the station. The operatives at the police station who were already on alert engaged the attackers in a fierce gun battle. They say that 14 of the gunmen were killed at the end of the gun duel, while others escaped with bullet wounds. It appears the bandits are now hard hit in the last few days after the attack on the Federal Government College Banditry, where they abducted students and staff members. Some of them were later rescued. And the news just coming in, an update from the military. The troops of the Nigerian Army operating under the auspices of Operation Hadarin Daji, supported by the Nigerian Air Force component, have rescued more abductees of the FGC Benin Yari. One teacher and 3 students are said to have been rescued on Saturday at Makuku in the ongoing search and rescue operations. The troops also says they've killed 1 bandit and recovered 9 motorcycles and 4 handsets from the fleeing bandits. They say that additional troops have also been deployed to dominate the forest and deny the bandits freedom of action. It was on Friday that 2 teachers and 5 students were rescued by the troops in a coordinated firefight with the kidnappers. Also, news coming from Kebbi State is that the state government has now shut 7 schools indefinitely following the last week attack. So tonight, to get some updates and views on the incident and the issues of national security, plus issue of constitutional amendment and the way forward in a very crucial situation Nigeria is in, we have the Senate Majority Leader and the federal lawmaker from Kebbi State, Senator Yahya Abdullahi. Thank you so much, Your Excellency and distinguished Senator, for coming tonight. What a sad scenario that played out. The abduction of the students and staff at the FGC Benin Yari. Senator, the situation must have jolted the entire state. What is the mood like, and what lesson has been learned from by the leadership of the state following that very sad scenario?
Thank you very much. I would like to first start by expressing my condolences to the police personnel who lost their lives, and the students also who also lost their lives, and the injured, victims of the assault. I will also try to use this opportunity to commend the government and people of Kebbi State for the prompt response, to the dastardly, act, of the bandits, and also thank the communities, the hunters and the vigilantes, who assisted the military in the operations, that led to successful rescue of some of the abducted students, and also to the elimination of a large number of the bandits. But let me say, after this, that this kind of action, not just the banditry in this country, has become a recurring decimal, particularly in the northwest zone of this country, in the north central part of this country. One issue that we have to really look at this thing, we should not look at it as just happenstance, something that is just happening today. These things have their roots. They have their roots in the very serious security architecture, that we inherited over a long period of time. We have to look at this issue, from its historical perspective. And that started, from 1966, when the, particularly, let's say 67, 68, when the authority structure, was completely changed, and there is a centralization of the security architecture, away from local communities and put in the hands of government. Prisons, the police, the NA police were removed, the prisons were removed. Everything in terms of security was concentrated. The traditional rulers who used to handle some of these matters and bring information on the activities of criminals, were completely sidelined. They had their authority whittled down, and therefore this created a large ungoverned spaces among rural communities, and large population increases and the breakdown of law and order, made these communities, very much, they are just left on their own. The government was absent, the local security architecture did not have either enough number of personnel are not there. The institutions that are used to relate to the people in terms of providing them with modicum of security and welfare, are absent. So this created a big vacuum, in the security architecture of the country. And that's why you will see that, when from the 8th Senate right down to this 9th Senate, the Senate has done a lot of work on this security. I can tell you that of the motions that we have had, in the 9th Senate, we have about close to about 400 motions, that have been read on the floor of the Senate. About half of them are on security. And immediately we came in the 9th Senate. We had the security-related committee, which met with all the security people in this country, with all the institutions, the police, the military, the intelligence agency, and all of them, including the communication ministry and others. We met with them to try to find out the ways and means in which we can revamp the architecture of this country in order to provide security at the local level, for the people of this country. We sat down and do a report, made motions, and submitted the thing in, I think, about 3 volumes, to the security agencies and to the executive arm of government. This underscores the importance that the National Assembly and the Senate in particular, had, for security of this country. Now, unless we really sit down now to look at the architecture itself, how are the people secured? The entire Nigerian police is just about 350 to 370,000 people. How can they secure 200 million people? Only God knows. With this, the Nigerian army, just about 150 to about 200,000 people. Whatever you will do, you don't have enough men on the ground. Of course, there is a lot of national debate now going on, which I think is a healthy debate, on deploying the police or creating either community policing or allowing states and the geopolitical zones to establish police forces. I think this is a healthy debate, and this is one of the issues that is on the front burner in the current constitutional amendment exercise that the Senate is undertaking. But one thing is certain, we must have.
All right. Before we go into some of the details and the nitty-gritty of our conversation tonight, I know a lot of people who are watching tonight who are perhaps not aware of what is happening. Give us a sense of the latest coming from your state in the wake of the abduction at the Federal Government College. We are hearing now that more people are being rescued. We understand that many of the bandits were killed. What more can you tell us? How many of those bandits were killed, and in what manner did that operation happen?
Well, the operation in the first instance, there were reports, that bandits were intending to come and attack the school. So the authorities deployed about 20 to 25 mobile policemen to guard the school. But as usual, the bandits operate in large numbers. And these 20 policemen were not enough to be able to effect or to face the wrath of about 200 motorcycle riding bandits, each armed to the teeth. Therefore, the police forces had to withdraw. And these bandits were able to move in. Some of them took away about 800 heads of cattle. We could not actually ascertain the total number of students that had been kidnapped, because in the melee that happened, some parents quickly moved in and moved their children from the school. Therefore, even after the assembly was made, the head count was done. We are not certain whether some of the missing students, have already been taken by the parents. So unless the dust settles down, and the dust has not settled down yet. After I think from reports that we have, about 80 to 85 bandits, have been eliminated. And a lot of them were able to escape with wounds. There are a large number of motorcycles that they use to convey themselves, have been either been destroyed or taken over. So it is still a running thing because the security forces, are trying to build on their successes and are still pursuing the bandits. And I think just about sometime today, more bandits were killed and about 3 other kidnapped students rescued. So maybe between now and the middle of the week, better data and better information, would be garnered. But one thing is certain, the bandits in that location are on the back foot. And the successes that have been recorded by security forces have been phenomenal. And as we go on, they are in pursuit, and we are sure that successful efforts have been made, and the bandits are actually scattered, and they had to now move in to mop the whole thing up.
Senator, doesn't this look like there is some sore points from what you have explained that perhaps as a nation and as a people that we need to learn from? So when there are information that these bandits were going to attack the school, that is a credible intelligence because it happened. They said they were going to come, they came, and they did whatever they planned to do. That's credible information, credible intel. But it does look like ill preparation on the side of the security operatives. Because if they are able to come and they overpower the security operatives and perhaps put the lives of those security operatives and the student and the staff in danger because they are not able to match the number of those who are there. What does this tell us? Because another area that is tied to this question is that you said that they took along with them several cattle and they're walking through the forest. Give us a sense of what is happening within that scenario. They operated for several minutes, gunned well, so people will think that there must be some kind of reinforcement to help the 20 to 25 security operatives on the ground. Does that look like an ill preparation from your point of view?
Yeah, we see what I started this interaction, I informed you that the entire nation, given all the things that we have, only 350,000 policemen. And when you look at some of the local governments, I say some of the local governments, none of them can you say you can spare about 20 to 30 policemen in a single local government. The number of forces that are on the ground simply does not exist. To even get the 20 that you are talking about, you have to remove certain police forces, mobile police forces from other locations to put them there. So what we are saying is that the boots on the ground in the security structure of this country is terribly inadequate. So we have to sit down and rebuild the security structure in such a way that we allow local communities through community policing and the state government to have boots on the ground so that we can be able to mass and have enough men on the ground, to match any mobilization and any mass attack, that bandits might bring. If there were enough men on the ground, say about 100 well-armed policemen, this kind of thing would not have happened. But where do you get more than the policemen? The policemen are engaged all over the north, all over Nigeria, 350,000 of them, apart from some of them who are guarding and doing several other guard duties and protecting major national infrastructure. So the major issue is not really a question of negligence or anything, but it's just that we don't have the boots on the ground. So the issue is that we have to now reboot the security structure of the country, change the security structure of the country so that we can have enough policemen and enough security agencies on the ground and in the locations. In this country today, there are so many open and governed spaces Now, these open and governed spaces, particularly in forests, are the kind of sanctuaries that these hoodlums and criminals use to hide, only to emerge when they want to come out and attack helpless and helpless communities who have no means of defending themselves. So it's not a local issue. It's an issue that we have to deal with at the national level and particularly at the state level. But we have to also empower the states, allow the states through legal and constitutional means to be able to have their own local police and security forces, and also allow through community policing for local people to be able legally to come out and defend themselves. Because if we had that kind of local police and security presence on the ground, the bandits would not have even dared to even start the banditry in the first place. In the presence of these open spaces and the lopsided security architecture that we have in this country, that is the major cause of the banditry that we have. So the issue is not to say there is a blame on the authorities that are there now. What can authorities do if they don't have the people to put on the ground to do all this kind of work? We have to sit down and look at the entire architecture, make the laws, change the constitution in any way possible so that we can be able to provide proper security for our own people.
So, I mean, there are a lot of question marks, actually, on what has happened. Because if you look at what, how those bandits operated, painful that they operated in that number, because we understand that more than 100 of them on motorbikes with heavily armed, and they came and did the operations. I will come back in a moment on the issue of the details of what happened. But what do you think has happened, Senator, in your state and in the region? Because the story that the bandits come on motorbikes, numbering up to 200, how did these elements grow to such an extent? And it appears that they have the whole region encircled. Were we all sleeping and we just wake up one morning and these guys are terrorizing and they've taken over the forest? What really happened? How did they get here?
What we are talking about, is just like what I have said. There are these great, large open spaces. The north is extremely large. There are, the territoriality of take Niger State. You can put the entire southeastern states in half of Niger State, in one single constituency. So the vast expanse of land that is there, the forest trade that is there, and the total absence of any security cover will allow any of these people, and the porous borders that you have, the availability of guns everywhere, and the total, in some of these communities, there is complete lack and absence of any form of authority. Because as I said earlier, the security architecture that was built up to the first military rule was completely destroyed. And then in its place, there was a centralization that happened. So it deprived the local communities and the local authorities of any form of boots on the ground that they can to secure themselves. Now, with the rise in population increase and a falling economy, it became quite attractive for young men and people of doubtful and of doubtful character, to put themselves together, and because they have been succeeding, in the absence of any form of modicum of defense on ordinary people, in making money, so it became like a trade. People become attracted, to camps. They call it daba, several camps. These bandits are in camps. If you attack them in this camp, they will move. They will go back to another camp. Then they will now survey a local community that does not have any form of defense and attack it. So they are not stationary in only one place at any one time. They move from time to time. If you flash them out of Zamfara, they move from Zamfara to go into Niger. You attack them out of Niger, they go to Kebbi. They take you out of Kebbi, they go to Kaduna State. So it is a whole, Katsina and all this. So it's this vast expanse of undefended territory, that we are talking about. Therefore, the major issue is that unless we now come and rejig the security architecture and allow local people the means to defend themselves, this kind of situation is going to continue.
If you look at in Benin Yari, which is in the Yari local government area, and if you look at trying to understand how the operations of these bandits, because we want to, you understand that terrain very much. You have Nasarawa, Niger, Zamfara, and other states bordering Kebbi State. But if you look at that area where these students were abducted in the FGC Benin Yari in the Yari local government area itself. There are other communities like Yelwa, Jinsani, Benin Yari. There is a major expressway, the Benin Yari Rijadu Road, which is several kilometers.
Rijo.
What is the distance? How many kilometers, for example, is the FGC Benin Yari to the nearest forest? Because we understand also that some of these terrains are not motorable, and so they came with motorcycles. Give us a sense of what the distance is and perhaps the expanse of the forest, so that those who do not been to that region can get a sense. And perhaps the question mark I said earlier of how they operated, and they moved for several hours undetected, also unsuspected, and they were never caught.
It's not a question of they are not detected. You see, they can be detected. But those who detect them in the local areas do not have the security operatives, either those who they provide the normal information, and even if they do provide the normal information, you don't have the security presence, the police presence, the firepower, to be able to bring them to question. You have to do a lot of mobilization for you to have the necessary kind of manpower that will attack this. You are talking in the area, you see, you are talking about a junction where you have Kebbi State, you have Zamfara State, you have Kaduna State, you have Niger State. That particular area, you have huge, one of the largest forest reserves, in the country, which that forest reserve has not been manned properly by forest guards and park rangers. Therefore, there are a lot of, it's a large forest expanse of several hundred square kilometers. So for you to, and people can operate in that place. It used to be a huge forest where people go before, I think as late as the 80s, to hunt elephants, to hunt huge wild boars and other kind of and other kind of wild animals, in that forest. So it used to be a huge hunting ground. So it's about more than 400 square kilometers in that particular location alone. So, the bandits have freedom of movement. They can even decide to move undetected through the forest without even having to circumvent any village. Some of these villages are scattered, as small farm settlements. So what they do is to move on around the farm settlements, get what they want, kill who they want to kill, and then go back and hide in the forest. When you mobilize the necessary strength of the security forces to come and attack them, they easily move on to another location, kill people they want to kill, they take over. So the only alternative, if you just want to sit down and looking for to blame game, who to blame, that's not a way. You can't blame anybody on this issue. The issue, if you are going to blame anybody, you have to blame the nation. You have to blame the nation for the kind of negligence that we have had suffered over the years by not looking at our nation and taking care of the lives of the people.
Yeah, the nation has leadership. And presently, in the last 6 years, the nation is being led by the APC government. You are a leader of the APC. So if you are saying let us blame the nation, you are part of the nation. You are part of the leadership. And so, that's what we are asking you. Well,
that's what we are doing.
But you are a leader in the APC. Senator, you are a leader in the APC.
I am telling you that's what we are doing.
And security of life and property is a primary responsibility of government.
These issues,
how do you then react?
Did not start with the APC.
Just a moment, if I may throw the question. How do you react to those who say the government has failed in this area of protecting lives and property? That is one major promise of your government, the APC.
Let me tell you one thing. This issue of banditry did not start with the APC government. I have telling you that over the years, this issue has been deteriorating. And that's why I also mentioned you about the kind of thing that we did, even during a Senate, of which, I am proud, and I am proud to be a member of. Several security reports and several security actions were taken, by the government. At the beginning of this government, you recall that one of the first act of President Buhari was to wear military uniform and go to Zamfara. At that time, they launched an operation which brought some succor, but it will only last for a small period of time. Later on, several recruitment, there was this promise, which was delivered by the president, of recruiting 10,000 policemen every year, and that has been effected. Now, we also that this thing is not enough. And we've realized that the security architecture of the country is at fault. So now, when you look at what we are doing, is that we are trying to rejig the security architecture of this country. Look at the way in which the security is managed. Look at the number of booths on the ground. Look at the constitutional and legal issues, so that we can now come with the necessary constitutional amendments. These are the issues that are now going to come in the current constitutional amendment exercise that we are doing. And we have already liaised with the state. We cannot just amend the constitution at the National Assembly. We have to have at least 2/3 of the state government to support us. And I think we can, on this particular matter, we might have already secured the number of state governments that we require, so that the necessary constitutional amendment can be made, so that we can allow local tiers of government to have the security officers and boots on the ground they require, so that we can be able to eliminate this thing once and for all. But let me also emphasize that this issue did not start with APC, but it will end, hopefully, with APC.
All right. Senator, we need to take a break. But look, we are, as a media organization, we hold government accountable, especially when you make promises, and we're asking for the answers to the promises that you've made. We respect and we understand the effort of our gallant military and police and security operatives on the field and what they are doing. We are Nigerians, and we are hoping that things will get better for our country. For those who are leading the country, we have the constitutional responsibility of asking those questions on how they are leading this country. And that's why we are asking those questions. We want solutions. But we'll take a breather and get our concluding moment with the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Yahya Abdullah. But also, next on the program, after the break, a former Assistant Inspector General of Police, Hussein Enaligo, joins us to discuss the security situation in the Southeast region and the stance of the Southeast governors against secessionist agitations. That's next on the program. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's get back to our conversation with the Senate Majority Leader and the Senator representing Kebbi North in the National Assembly, a member, a chieftain of the APC. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. Quickly, we have to do a few business aside the business of talking about Kebbi State. But let me ask you, as a leader of the APC, when your party says they're going to fix security and perhaps the profile of President Muhammadu Buhari as a general in the Nigerian army gave that kind of assurance that he's got things covered as related to the issue of security. How do you feel as a father, as a leader, as a senator, and as a citizen that your party perhaps is finding it difficult to deliver on that very promise?
Thank you very much. As a father, a leader, I'll tell you that I'm touched and I'm not happy. But then also, as a public officer and as a person who has been in government, I know the limitations of things like this, turning around situations that have lasted for close to 50 years. There have been challenges that face this nation over all these years. some of the issues that led to the current deterioration that we are having started long before APC was even formed. And it was these kind of challenges that the party, like you said, promised to come to put to an end, or to at least lend a corrective direction in such a way that we can be able to eliminate them. We have done a lot, and I can assure you that what is coming now and what we are going to do now within the 2 years that we have remaining as the government of this nation, we are going to do much more. And Nigerians will see the results of our efforts within the next few months. I say months because I know what is really on the ground and what efforts are being made. Now these efforts
that's cheering, Senator. That story that we will be seeing more, and perhaps some very things that you'll be doing in the next 2 months. But quickly, because I need to ask you a few more questions outside of this, how can Nigerians then believe your party? Because if you say you have not been able to do this in 6 years, so how can they believe that you are able to do it in 2 years?
I didn't say that we have not been able to do anything in 6 years. We have done a lot in those 6 years. But what we have done is not enough, to bring, soccer and to really, control this control the issues, as they should be. What we are trying to do now, having really understood what is happening, it's to tackle this issue from 2 dimensions. One, strengthening the armed forces with better equipment and better intelligence and better fighting equipment and fighting logistics. And then also tackling the constitutional basis, the security architecture itself, so that we can be able to make those kinds of security changes that brings the more boots on the ground to secure people, at the local level. Because you cannot, under these kind of circumstances, find out that anything that's having to be done with security and securing people's life has to come from an order either from the IG or from the Chief of Defense Staff who reside in Abuja. So something has to be done around the architecture. So we are strengthening the forces while we are getting the constitutional and legal issues, resolved.
Okay,
settling the constitutional and legal issues is the most fundamental way of attacking these people. It's not a question of just you don't create a soldier overnight. You train a soldier. So we have to sit down, correct the trading institutions, recruit more, then allow local forces to develop and allow the states and the local governments to have forces that can protect the people at the local level.
All right. So quickly,
this is what will bring this to end.
Yeah, so my query as to what you said is how Nigerians, what you will tell Nigerians now to believe you within the next 2 years, because electioneering activities will begin in the next few months. But quickly, let me ask you, do you have a sense of who these guys are? I'm talking about the bandits, those who are taking our innocent children out of their schools, who are abducting them. Some of those who have escaped say that they are not Nigerians. Who are they really? And where could they have come from?
You see, it is a combination. It's a combination of Nigerians and non-Nigerians. Now, the weaknesses of the security architecture and the porous nature and dispersed population and the large expanse of land that we find in those particular areas was a result of a period of time that there was a lot of neglect. And that neglect allowed both the entry of the foreign forces, the entry of arms and ammunition, particularly after the collapse of Libya. And you can find this is generally what is happening in the entire Sahel. The entire Sahel now, from Mali to Niger to Chad, is a conflict zone. So it is not just here. It's a combination of so many different ethnicities. It's not a combination of one single tribe. In fact, some of the most abused tribe, the Fulanis, were themselves the initial victims, of this particular conflict. After their whole cattle and their whole means of life was taken away, a lot of their youth found themselves there, and a lot of their youth were recruited by this same kind of bandits, and they became the face, of banditry in this country. So the issue is that we have to now look at a bandit is a bandit. A bandit has no tribe. A bandit is a bandit and he's a criminal, whoever he is. Whether he is a Hausa man, whether he is a Yoruba man, whether he is a Fulani man, whether he is a Bambara from Mali, once he engages in banditry, he's a criminal and he will be hunted down.
All right. On a final note, and perhaps quickly, Senator, I would have loved to have the conversation around the constitutional amendment, but I see that you have talked about it. I would have loved to engage you with what the Senate has done in the last 2 years, with the criticism that it's just a rubber stamp of the executive, but there's no time for that also. But let's get this final question to you, and perhaps if you can deal with it just in the next 45 or 50 seconds. Give us a sense of what we need to believe and what you make of the situation, the argument about grazing routes, and when the southern governors and leaders are saying that they have banned open grazing in the region, but the president perhaps have been reported to have said there will be reactivation of the grazing route. It's giving you a problem, isn't it? In your region, give us an understanding if it is and if it's not, and perhaps is that a right idea to reactivate the grazing routes?
You see, when you look at this issue, you have to look at it from an understanding of the historical origins of that kind of policy. It was a colonial policy, because even when the colonialists came, one of the major sources of conflict is this normal annual conflict between the herders and the farmers. Therefore, they created, a system of having grazing reserves and also having cattle routes. Because at that time transhumance was more, the movement of herds from the north to the south in the dry season, and from the south to the north in the wet season. So we understand also the nature of the legislation that created the grazing reserves and the cattle routes was regional. Because at that time, when Lugard took over northern Nigeria, they took over all the lands, and they vested the control over land in the government. And then this government was broken up, and it came from 12, to 19 northern states, to now about 19 northern states or so. So there are several jurisdictions. The federal government, under the Nigerian constitution, does not have control over land. It's the state governments who have control over land. Therefore, all the federal government will do is to technically find out where these routes are and get the state governments to do the necessary enactments. The federal government cannot, under the current Nigerian constitution, they don't have control over land. Even if the federal government wants land, they have to go to the state to beg for land. So, constitutionally, the federal government does not have control over land. But they can have control over making surveys, and then on the basis of those surveys, they can advise the states, what they need to do, to recreate those routes. And maybe in some of these areas, they may have to pay some compensation. Already, there are some state governments like Katsina and others who have already, like I think Bauchi and others who already have done, even before the federal government came up with this policy, the state governments have already done their own work, and they have identified these routes, and they have identified some of these reserves, and they are poised to do something about them. But you have to understand, land is in the hands of the state under the current constitution. So what the federal government will do is to advise the states on the nature of the rules that were there before, and advise them to make the necessary legislation and take the necessary action so that these rules will be created and these reserves will be recreated. Where they are meant for other purposes, the federal government can advise the states to pay compensation or to relocate some of these in an area that is possible.
Well, I wish we could talk more so that we can get your own view on the debate, but the time is not on our side, and we need to move on to some other topics. But I must sincerely thank you, Senate Majority Leader, Senator Yahya Abdullahi. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight, and we do hope that those students and staff that have been abducted, more of them will come out and safely too. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's take you to the Southeast region and what the leaders of that region are doing to stop the unrest. They have stated their position over the call for secession by some groups in the zone. The governors, as well as other leaders in the region, have unequivocally condemned the violent activities of the groups in the area and other parts of the country, insisting that they do not speak for them. This declaration came after a closed-door meeting of the leaders and governors of the Southeast region at the government house in Enugu over the weekend.
We, the Igbos, do reaffirm our commitment to one united Nigeria under a platform of justice, equality of rights, fairness, love, and respect for one another. We have noted threats by some groups in some other regions against our people of Southeast, while we firmly promise to protect everyone either from our own region or other regions living in our places. We plead with the leaders of other regions to please note the threats to our people and to please address the threats to our people and to protect them. We condemn the killing of security agencies, the burning of strategic infrastructure, and killing of civilians in Southeast and even in other regions. We request our security agencies to please discharge their duties within the rules of engagement and the law. We condemn in totality the activities of violent sensationalist groups in Southeast and elsewhere. We firmly proclaim that we do not support them. They do not speak for Southeast. The impression that Southeast leaders are silent over some of our youth agitation for secession is not correct. Southeast governors, Ohaneze president, and her leadership, National Assembly members and her leadership from Southeast, notable leaders from Southeast, had come out publicly many times in the past, including ministers from Southeast, to speak against such agitations. In order not to mismanage the unfortunate situation we found ourselves, Southeast leaders have set up a committee to engage such youths to stop and allow the elders of Southeast to address their fears.
That's the governor of Ebonyi State and the chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum at the end of that meeting. The meeting had some ministers, they had leaders, President of Ohaneze and some other federal lawmakers at that meeting. I'm now being joined on the program by a former Assistant Inspector General of Police, Mr. Wilson Inalegu, to give some perspectives on the matter in the Southeast region. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. He's in our Abuja studio tonight. Mr. Inalegu, it's good to see you. First and foremost, before we come into the Southeast, let me get your view on the situation I was discussing with the senator, the majority leader, about the abduction of the student, the terrain there. What do you make of the situation? Now and again, we see these abductions of innocent students who are there in their various institutions to learn, and these terrible, evil elements go in there, invade their schools, and abduct them. How can we stop this dastardly act?
It's a pleasure for me to be here. I think it's a sad thing. That plague shouldn't be allowed to stay. But what my take on it is this. Yes, we don't have many officers. The strength of the police is quite low. But technology is a force multiplier. I think we should consider deploying technology as well as engaging and getting into partnership with our various communities. I think a lot of lessons have been learned. Therefore, what needs to be done at this stage is developing appropriate policing priority. The threat has always been there, from Katsina, Zamfara, Kebbi now, Niger, and Kaduna states. We've had this incident over and over and over again. Therefore, what do you need to do? I think we should develop a standard operating procedure for dealing specifically with issues of mass kidnap, particularly those of school children and university students. We've got to do something about it. And in doing that, we may not have the number, but with technology, with partnership with the community, we can do a lot. And what can we do? We should begin to think of a kind of radio alarm security. I recall in those days when we used to have a lot of bank robberies at banks. Some banks were connected to police station. And once a bank is under attack, it sets off an alarm. So that is important. But that is a product of developing a standard operating procedure for dealing with such incidents, like the case of Bini Yauri that is we are talking about now. I'm told from what I read in the papers that there was intelligence. But then you had 25 officers. Yes, those 25 officers, if adequately equipped, they may not be able to stand 200 or 150 well-armed personnel, hoodlums, but they will be able to a kind of deterrence that on approach, I'm told there were signals that they were coming, nobody knew. So what do you need to do? You have to have a kidnap awareness. When you have such a kidnap awareness, since schools have been targeted, it becomes easy for you to say, look, based on the training and the procedure you may wish to adopt between teachers and students, quickly the students could find themselves, either the school is there's an alarm to the school, and the school is hurriedly closed, the students are evacuated in a way that has been previously planned, based on practice and training the students have been given. In that way, they don't even come. Because in this case, when they are coming, you don't wait for them to select a target. Let the students, after they be taken to a place, they will know that once there is such an alarm, what do you do? And those 25 officers become like a kind of rapid response. But then you need to equip them a little bit more. All of them should have body armor. They should have a smoke, what we call tear gas. So there will be a kind of, you create a delay and time. By the time these 25 are engaging them, you've created a delay and time for the students to disappear. And in that case, they will not have them bunched together to be able to take any number up to 20 or 30. I think this is what we should be thinking about, developing a standard operating procedure, creating kidnap awareness, and using technology as a multiplier of force. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for that insight. Perhaps someone is listening, and there is a sense from what you've said that will be taken into consideration so that we can stop all of this nonsense that I call it of these very terrible guys that are terrorizing these schools. Let's go into the Southeast region. The governors and the leaders have come to say, look, these guys that are talking about secession, we do not know them. We condemn what they do, but give us a sense of what could have caused that kind of agitation, because there should be a cause, and now we're looking at how to end it. We need to know what's the cause and perhaps how to end it. You've been in that region. You've led men on the ground in that region. Perhaps what a lot of people will have wondered, how did the South region turn into such a region or an area that institutions are being attacked and people have been killed?
I think let me say we're having leadership. When I was in your studio, I think about 3-4 weeks ago, I had remarked that the major meeting of the Southern governors did not condemn the killing of security personnel. That they have done. They have also taken another step to dissociate themselves from some of the goings on. You see, the excellencies, the governors, have a lot of role to play in dousing tension, in bringing this. But nature abhors vacuum. If you understand your policing environment, what is that thing agitating the people? That is what community policing is all about. That the community and the police come together to address issues of common interest and in a way to solve, it's a kind of problem-solving approach. Now, there were agitations, attacks around Osuka and some of these places. The police force was doing its best. But now that the governors are coming to talk about it, that this is an issue that may have originated, that there were complaints of attack on farms and the rest of them, and many other issues that have arisen. Now, I think there is a kind of understanding. I think there are various communities that people are listening that finally their excellencies are doing something about it. Because Ebubeagu came up, good initiative, but was the timing, was it a bit too little too late? But now, my appeal to our people in the Southeast and all over the country is that the government is determined at whatever level, either at the local government level, at the state level, and the federal level, to address issues of crime and criminality frontally. Let there be support to security agencies. The SA securities to the governors and the commissioners of police and other security chiefs in the various states and local government should now come together and develop policing plan. If you don't develop a policing plan, the security agencies are like doctors. If you go to a consulting room, the doctor cannot just see you and say, oh, you have fever, you have this. The doctor has to ask you. Therefore, I know that the security advisors and the commissioners of police and the SDS and other security chiefs will engage more with the public and know those crimes of concern. Because if you address crimes of concern, it's like a miracle. Agitation, complaints about crime go down. Because you could be addressing a theft of car, but that is not what bothers the people. So all I want to say, there should be support to the police and other security agencies and more engagement with the public. Build more partnership. When you build partnership, you begin to hear from the public because they wear the shoe, they know where it pinches. When you begin to address crimes of concern, you begin indirectly to address fear of crime. And in that way, the various communities begin to experience peace. So if when these agitations were coming, I don't think ESN would have come. Ibubiago should have come before ESN to address those issues. When you create a room like that, non-state actors cash on it, capitalize on it, and make your government look as if you are not taking the interests of the public. But I am I think the governors have done great job by coming together to address this issue. So, and from now on, you are going to see the situation change.
On a final note, and perhaps in 30 seconds, if you may, if you can help us, some of the leaders are saying that some of these groups and non-state actors that have arms should lay down their weapons. But what worries me is, where did these weapons come from? And how easy will this the effort in restoring calm be for that region?
It's quite difficult retrieving weapons from people who have them. But the government can, through the various communities, through the various chiefs, I think the government has just set up a small arm recovery or something in the Office of the National Security Advisor. I recall ECOWAS has an office for small arms and all that. I think they have a procedure. Various communities, they are giving incentives that if you submit this number of weapons, you are given. I recall then when we were in the peacekeeping mission in Sierra Leone, every community that submit arms were given about $40,000 US. And that and then the community will use the money to engage in developmental projects. People know in the communities know who carry these weapons. If you talk to them, they will appeal to them. And then once you give them a grace period and they don't comply, you give them amnesty, then the security forces, through intelligence gathering, will be able to bring get these weapons recovered.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson Inalagu, a former Assistant Inspector General of Police, thank you so much for your thoughts tonight and some of your technical perspectives that you put into the situation. Thank you so much indeed. And that's how we end the show tonight. Many thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Sean Wakimale, and I must say, Happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the evening.